Welcome back, Howligans, once again for another riveting episode of Movie How. My name is Joe, is joined as always by my stunning and brilliant co-host Ryan. He is my Doc Holliday to my Wyatt Earp. So we're doing this today. We're gonna do Tombstone, a bit of an older movie, not spaghetti western old, but as far as any what I consider modern westerns, it is my hands down favorite western movie of all time. You? Anything? Is it?
No, I'm just waiting for you to be like.
I don't actually.
I'm just waiting for you to be like, all right, that's my review. Totally a watch. All right, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Because you kind of got into it right away, yeah. This first off, huge compliment, Doc Holliday. Doc Holliday. This, the what Val Kilmer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Version of Doc Holliday is one of the greatest movie characters ever, in my opinion. Maybe that's because I saw this movie in more formative years.
Maybe.
But I just love so much about his personality. And there's a few little things that I identify with too. Like, I don't love the whole like chess or quoting things being a shorthand thing that movies do to show that a character is intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
But when the two of them, Doc and God, I forget one of the guys who's part of the Cowboys gang.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
They have this
Johnny
little,
Ringo.
Yeah. They have this little back and forth, and they're speaking Latin to each other, but I think they're really just quoting stuff,
Probably.
I don't think it's like a real conversation. I remember seeing like an analysis of that scene a while back. But I love when Ringo starts like swinging his gun around, like spinning it and doing all these tricks. And then Doc just takes his little, like his special tuberculosis, like shot cut glass, like little tin cup thing, and spins that on his finger and then like puts that away.
It's one of the greatest moments in that movie.
Oh my God, it's
so good. The dynamic between those two. There's a lot about this movie that I like. Now there are parts of this movie that I believe are a little dated, a little hokey. Some different things that they do that is it is what it is.
Yeah.
But the things that they get right in this, starting from the very outset, the opening of this movie really just sets the pace of the entire thing. It's the little bit of dialogue that comes up beforehand, talking about the background of what you're about to watch, and all these outlaws. They form a band called the Cowboys, and then boom, you get hit with this music, a ride of all these men on horses, and it's just go time from the very outset of this. You are in for a ride, and It really, you really are. You're taking on quite the journey with this movie. You're meeting characters who are nobody's new to the game in this. You're not meeting. You're like, oh, you've got the old weathered man training the new younger guy who's gonna learn everything and he's gonna come into his own. And it's none of that. All the people who are in this, for the most part, they've already done everything, and it's just a story of them, just how everything falls into place. You've got these brothers, Wyatt Earp and his brothers, who they just want to retire, and they want to make their way in the world now that they're done doing the lawman thing, and they just get pulled into this world again of it's what everybody thinks of as the Western world, that time frame, which I have to say, if you're going to talk about that time frame, I'm really glad to be living when I'm living. Maybe 1,000 years from now, people will look back on us like, I can't believe people used to live like that. But not that long ago, a couple 100 years ago, people were living like dirt. Like it was hard living for humans up until the past couple 150-ish years. Was hard living for most human beings around everywhere. Even some of the best, like even some of the poorest people here in our great country, live better than kings 800 years ago.
Right.
So, you're talking about Western times is just dirty and filthy and
disease,
any of that,
short life expectancy, terrible food. Like I went through a gas station earlier and I got a steak and cheese taquito. That would be a delicacy just 100 or 200 years ago.
Right? Oh goodness. So yeah, this world that you're brought into, and yeah, it could have been when it part of it is going to be rose-colored glasses, only because of when we were introduced to this movie.
Hmm.
But I mean, I had seen things before then. My dad introduced me to plenty of westerns, Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, watching Silverado, things like that, and just this nothing hit like this did for me, and I haven't yet found anything else to displace it among my favorite of all westerns. It's it's good. When it's good, it's so good that I'm not interested in anything displacing it, if I'm honest. One of my favorite parts about this is the bad guys. Bad guys doing bad guy stuff.
Yeah.
Powers Booth. This is probably my first introduction to that actor. I don't remember seeing him in anything before this, and he was just great as the leader of the Cowboys.
Yep.
Liked him a lot. But you've got him, you've got Kurt Russell, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, and we said Val Kilmer. But playing this, this is Val Kilmer's defining role as far as I'm concerned. Like I know he got to play uh, Jim Morrison in the Doors movie, and that was whatever. It was what it was. Not really my kind of thing. I like some of the Doors music, but other than that, I really don't give a crap. I kind of feel the way Dennis Leary when he talked about Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
Drunk, I'm nobody. I'm drunk. I'm famous. I'm drunk. I'm dead. That was Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
But this role for him, and I mean, you was one of the first things you pointed out. He is Doc Holliday, and I know plenty of other actors have done it. Played Doc. Nobody will, in my mind, replace when I think of Doc Holliday this character. One of the greatest movie characters played that has ever been.
Right. And I think a part of why the movie is so good is that it's not exactly the standard Western formula. There's usually like the stranger who comes to town. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
samurai thing, you know. There's a lot of like manga and anime episodes that are like that. A mysterious person comes to town and whatever, they solve some problem. You know, a lot of actually, now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of anime that I watched as a kid was about that. You know, the main character going from place to place, being the person who does that stuff, like being the one who, you know, comes in, finds something wrong, solves that problem. And westerns are different in that usually you're seeing it from the perspective of like somebody in the town who's getting to know this person. In particular, I'm thinking of like Shane. That's probably one of the first like westerns
Mm-hmm.
that I saw that I really liked. And it's very much that it's this mysterious person who is very skilled and eventually just has to do his thing and then move on.
Mm-hmm.
And this, like you're saying, it's taking historical people and making characters of them because we already know them.
Right.
Like there's an established lore that they don't really have to mess with too much, but it's refreshing, like you said, to not see the, you know, rookie learning from something or somebody being torn down just so they can be built back up later. Like to just see everybody doing their best in like this chess game of moving against each other and feigning like you're doing this when you're really planning something else. Like there's a lot to it that is just better written than most of what we
Mm-hmm.
get now.
Yeah.
And
Like
I
they
don't,
do a good job of really showing you, as far as at least the main characters, I would say, and even some of the supporting characters, really showing you kind of who they are based on actions and what they do. One of in the very first introduction of White Earp, there's a guy trying to get a horse off of this train car, and he's got this rope thing, and he's grabbing it by the reins. He's trying to pull it off, and it's being kind of stubborn. So he's hitting him with this rope thing that he's got. And Wyatt Earp just comes, this man just comes and snatches it out of his hand, and then hits him in the face with it. Hurts, don't it? And then just takes the horse away. Like
yeah,
you're immediately, oh, okay, he's this kind of guy. And I mean, it's Wyatt Earp, so that's what you think of. And he's not there to. He turns down every official that he meets, the county sheriff, the city sheriff, the mayor, and they're all, oh, hey, We were thinking, nope, not interested, not doing it. I
Right.
already did my time. I never melt a what was the quote? Never seen a rich man didn't have a guilty conscience. Well, I already
Yeah.
got a guilty conscience. May as well have the money too.
Yeah.
So just there to him, his brothers, they're all married. They just want to live their lives now. They've done their part. They want to make their way in the world and actually enjoy themselves. And there were some little parts in here played by people who I didn't actually you didn't know them at the time. You've got Thomas Hayden Church playing one of the Clantons. He was Billy Clanton, and I don't think I even really realized until this time that Ike Clanton, who's one of the just most memorable characters in this movie, because of just the kind of tries to be the bully yet is really cowardly. He's that
Yeah.
character. I didn't realize he's played by Stephen Lang, who was the bad guy in Avatar, and I've seen him in several other things.
Hmm.
But he was so much younger in this movie, but they did him up with Ike Clanton to look older. So I just never knew until doing research for this. Oh my, that's that guy? I just never could see it. So that was neat to see. And then you had well, I knew Jason Priestley. I recognized him because of watching 90210 when I was much younger. So I recognized him in it, but it was probably my first introduction to Billy Bob Thornton, who played the card dealer that Wyatt Earp goes into some. He's talking to the town sheriff about, oh, and then you've got the Oriental, this nice place, but nobody goes in there. And so he just walks off. His brother's like, where are you going? What? Oh, I guess he's gonna go do his thing.
Yeah.
And a very, very good scene in just that. And it's really, this movie does a good job of show don't tell. And it's really nice to, I've been watching a lot of movies recently, and there have been some that I've watched that have done that. And some of them a little bit older movies that they don't spend the time to tell you what something is. Like I just recently watched Boondock Saints, and
Hmm.
one of the characters in it, this bartender, older guy, the guy who was actually the only human character in the old television show Fraggle Rock, this old man character. He plays a bartender in Boondock Saints, but he has Tourette's, and he's doing this Tourette's thing, and he's cursing, and he's got this tick. They don't. They never say anything about it. They never address it at all. And I don't feel like they do that in movies anymore. If that were to happen, somebody in the movie would have to say something about it for the people in the audience who don't know what's going on, just so they could know what's going on. But you don't need to do that. Like, you don't need to dumb everything down. Everything is so watered down and dumbed down for society now. It's amazing that we have any people like an Elon Musk,
Hmm.
people who are so smart and pushing the boundaries so far. We could possibly have more people like that if we weren't doing things in society that just that's all we're trying to do is dumb things down for everybody. Warning labels on everything. Like, you don't, I mean, guess what? If you touch something hot, you get burned. I don't need a bunch of warnings for it. Somebody does it one time, they won't do it again.
Hmm.
And well, if they do it again, you know, you know what kind of person you're dealing with. But this movie was like that in the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to hold your hand storytelling. You're just watching it and you're seeing how things go down. Like the very first scene when you're introduced, before you're introduced to any of the good guys, you're introduced to the bad guys, introduced to the cowboys and what they're all about. And they go, to some there's some wedding going on, big celebration, and the bride and groom come out, and the groom immediately sees what's going on. These people have ridden up. He recognizes the red sash thing, and Powers Booth as Curly Bill Brosey, so good. Y'all killed two cowboys, and then they just start laying into him, and it's not pleasant for anybody in the town. They sit down at this feast, and just the things that happen. It's there's little characters in it, and everybody's got their own little personality, and I don't think they overplay anything. They don't try to hit you over the head with any of it. Well, this character's this kind of guy, and this character's that kind of guy, by just doing it over and over and over again. The way this was done, it's gotta partly be why I enjoyed it so much. Because even with some of the things that it does that are a little campy, and there's not a lot of those, but there's a few moments like that. But they're so outshined by the performances in this movie and the way it's written and everything, all the costumes, the cinematography. This is a well done piece right here.
Right. The only moment that I can think of is the no thing where Kurt Russell just runs out into the middle of that stream. It's one of the only parts
Yes,
of that movie I don't like. And I know it's like famous that it's a weird scene in the middle of this.
it really is.
But yeah, there's so much, like you're saying, that's shown and not told. Like the relationship between Wyatt and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that you see that the other two are happy. The other two couples, his brothers and their wives, they're happy. They love each other. Him and his wife, there's some weird tension, and they're not saying anything, but she needs laudanum,
Mm-hmm.
which is a mixture of opium dissolved in some kind of alcohol.
Yeah, opium and booze. Yes.
Yeah, and so she's using it for headaches. And he's like, "Oh, maybe
Haha,
you should go
quote
to the
unquote
doctor." Yeah,
headaches.
and so we just see throughout the movie that she's using this stuff. And she's acting kind of strangely, and it's clear that they're not happy with each other. Like he tries to get close to her, and she pulls away. She tries to get close to him, but she sees that he's kind of got his eye on Dana Delaney's character,
Mm-hmm.
Josephine, or whatever the actress's name is.
Yep.
And I just really like that there's no point where one of the brothers like sits him down, like you're saying, and has this talk about it and discusses it. You see what's happening.
Yep.
You see that there's no good guy or bad guy in that relationship. They have problems. It's not like he's cheating or anything. It's not like she's doing anything too terrible. It's like her drug use is driving him away. Him being driven away is causing him to look at other people, which only makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also, I just like that everybody's so distinct.
Yes.
Everybody has their own way of acting, their own, it's very easy once you've seen the movie once or twice to say, this is what Morgan would do. This is what Wyatt would do. This is what Doc would do. This is what like the county sheriff would do, you know?
Yeah.
And I
It's.
like that there are even these little character moments with the villains, like you're talking about. I like that
Mm-hmm.
they start with the villains, they show what they're like, and they're seeing that Faust production, and he, that they're asking Ringo like, what would you do if you were going to trade your soul? And he's like, I already did it.
Yep.
Like I love that scene, and I love the part where Doc is talking about, why it's like, what kind of man would do this, and Doc just starts talking about it. And there's a lot, yeah, there's just a lot about Doc that I like, and I
Yeah.
think
He.
just a little bit of it. I used to play Wolfenstein Enemy Territory on
Right.
a server. I was in a clan. I was with, God, I forget what it was, but it was. I don't even know if they use that term anymore. I think now they just call it teams, but back in the day, it used to be clans. So it'd be
Right.
like
Sure. Sure.
clan specific servers. But we were in this group, and like the server that we had a bunch of custom chat options. So you'd have like there was no voice chat because it was a long time ago, but there'd be like, you could do text chat or you could do like quick sort of chats where it's like enemy over here or enemy in
Mm-hmm.
disguise or we need an engineer or whatever else.
Right. Right. Sure. Sure.
But they would do custom ones where they would have their own text and their own audio in it, and a lot of them were Tombstone quotes. And I remember the one was like, "I got two guns, one for each of you."
You're so drunk, but you couldn't even hit me.
Yeah, there's so much that movie. I don't know. It's one of those ones that sticks with you.
It does, and it's. I mean, you could, if you just want to boil it down to super simple. It's been overquoted, I'd say, which is kind of a shame, but doesn't really bother me because of how worthwhile most of the quotes are. Like there, it's just I've seen some of the memes recently that involves usually Doc Holliday. They're just I don't really mind it because it's it's a cultural thing. It was so well done for the time that it came out that it's not going away. Any new young man who sees that movie, generally they're probably going to like it as much as we did.
Hmm.
Like it's just that kind of film, and I mean, ah, they're small little things that they do that as the story develops and you're just there's the idea of what they want to have happen, what they've got three brothers and what their goals are. You've got Doc and he's got his own goals, the thing, him and his woman, what they're doing. You've got the Cowboys and what they're doing, and how everything just kind of their paths are just destined to cross. Like there's almost no getting around it. Like the oldest brother, Sam Elliott in this movie, Sam Elliott, he's great in everything. It's Sam
Mhm.
Elliott. Um, he has a line where he's like, when I see the people of this town look at me, it's like somebody smacking me in the face. Like, and we're here making money off of it, and he just like he's too good of a man to just to live like that. But you understand. It's like you understand Wyatt's thought process of wanting to stay out of it. Like just when there's a scene where Curly Bill, he's in an opium den, and then he goes out and you hear him shooting off guns and he's like shooting at people and shooting up in the air and just whatever, just something that shouldn't be allowed to happen even in that time period. You can't just let that happen.
Right.
And they're all in the Earps saloon. They're part owners now of the Oriental, and they're in there and they're doing their jobs, and the sheriff is in, both sheriffs, the county and the city sheriff are in there. And oh, this is a town matter. It's not a county matter. It's a town matter. And so one of the sheriffs has to go out there and deal with it. And why it's like, how about you just let it go? Like he just really is trying to distance himself from anything that has to do with that.
Hmm.
Like letting, when there's a confrontation between him and Curly Bill earlier than that, during the scene that you mentioned with Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday, and their first real interaction between these two opposing sides of this movie. And Wyatt Earp tries to just get across to the big boss man that we don't want any part of this, man. We're here to do this and make money. You do whatever the hell you're going to do. But they just end up getting pulled into it regardless, because they're they're good people,
Yeah, they
and they
just can't help
can't
themselves.
they just can't. Like even he's the one who, when the scene I'm talking about, something happens and Wyatt Earp is the first one that goes running out there to take control of that situation and handle it. Like they just can't help themselves. It's in their nature to do it. And this movie's got, it's a western, so there's good action, good gun scenes, and firefights. It it's got a lot, but it's not just that. It's one of the best parts about this movie. You've got the romance between Kurt Russell and Dana Delaney's characters, which the first introduction of her character, I always liked that scene. You've got Billy Zane, which was, I think, the first time I was ever introduced to him. And him and her, they're like partners in this acting troupe, I guess. They just roam around and do this. And there's a little scene with her and him, and they see the Earp brothers all standing there, and there's some a little talking with those two back and forth as they're viewing the scene that's going on in front of them, and that was really nice. But the the relationship between those two, it's still, part of this boils down to it's kind of a love story. Like there is a lot of elements that are involved in this movie. It's certainly not as straightforward as a fistful of dollars. Old Clint
Mhm.
Eastwood, come in, kill bad guy, go away. Like, or get beat up and then have to start all over again and build yourself up, go on this epic tale of revenge through the whole army of bad guys until you get to the head bad guy. That's basically John Wick's story right there.
Right.
Would not that doesn't make those worthwhile in and of themselves. Those are, there's still a place for all of that, but this is just so much more than any of that. So
I feel like we're just doing nothing but heaping praise on this movie.
it's really hard not to. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to try and pick, as I said, besides some small nitpicky things, and the thing you mentioned is easily one of those. There's the scene when
they're pinned down at a stream. It's a showdown between the Cowboys and Wyatt's guys.
Yes.
There's like 4 on Wyatt's side and like maybe 8 on the Cowboy side.
Yeah, or more,
And
and they've got him in a crossfire.
yeah,
So it's a real bad situation for the heroes of the movie. And yeah, that what happens in that scene, it is really weird. Wyatt goes out there and like it's just smoking fools, and Curly Bill's like, oh, no, I'm gonna go do this, and he's gonna go handle it himself. And like his gun is up, like Curly Bill, his gun is already pointed at him, and all of a sudden, from down, his holding his shotgun down, there's this slow motion no, and he like slow motion brings it up, blows away the leader of the Cowboys, and it's just compared to everything else that had gone on in that movie, it was really weird.
it was a little cartoonish. Yeah,
It was.
it would we if it was a more modern movie, we would have complained about it as being like when Captain Marvel takes off that thing, that like restraining thing, then
Mm-hmm.
like unleashes her full power out of nowhere. It's like Wyatt went Super Saiyan and just ran out.
For a hot second, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But other than that, there's not a lot to be complained about with this movie.
no, yeah. There's great characterization. Honestly, my probably most people's favorite character is Doc, though,
Oh, for sure.
because his motivation is the most selfless. He has no stake in any of it. He doesn't like Ringo, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
He just does what he does because he likes Wyatt and his brothers. He
Yeah,
just
when
like he
one of
he's just running
uh
his scam, and he's sick.
mm-hmm.
And I had a flu watching it, so I had like a little bit of a different perspective than I had before. It's like, man, when you're sick, especially if you're having a respiratory issue like I have been, like it's rough trying to do much of anything. Especially the fact that as soon as they're doing anything dangerous, he is right there.
Right there.
He's like, I'm coming with you. Like, and there's the probably my favorite line or my favorite exchange in the whole movie is when Doc's talking to one of the other guys that's with him and Wyatt.
I was getting ready to bring that up. Absolutely. I know what you're gonna
Yeah, and
say.
he's saying, what's in it for you, Doc? And he's like, Wyatt's my friend. And the guy's like, man, I got plenty of friends. And he goes, I don't.
It's like,
I just
that's
love
right.
that exchange.
It's like hell, I got a lot of friends. I don't. It is. And I mean, Wyatt's with him all the way through the end. Like when he's broke, they've lost all their money. Everything is they put everything into going after taking on the Cowboys, and he's still Doc Holliday's his buddy, and he's going and playing cards with them, and keeping him company in this little hospital thing that he's in as he's dying of tuberculosis. It's there's a lot to like about this movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think basically we're doing this one, Halligan's, for any of those who have not seen this. If you have not seen Tombstone, you have to watch it. If you are at all a fan of any guy movies or westerns or anything that just you just want to see something that's well written and good characters and well done, like if you a fan of any of that, watch this movie.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
this
there's
is, I
not
mean,
much
it's
more.
yeah, like it's almost lame-ish when there's the movie's so good and there's so many good things. I could probably talk about this and different aspects of it for a long time to come. I could just milk this for a while if we really wanted to talk about certain cinematography aspects, the way the director chose to do things, and but don't really need to. You just need to
Yeah.
get out, watch this movie. It, I've seen it so much. I have it on DVD. I had it on DVD years ago, and I lost it somehow, whether in moving or I thought I let a buddy borrow it, but he's totally sure he doesn't have it, and I bought it again recently because I saw it cheap in a bin somewhere, so I totally have it again. But it just popped up on Hulu. No, Prime. I think I was watching stuff on Prime, and I just saw it pop up, and we movies you might like, and that was one. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll just pop this on because I could have this running in the background anytime doing stuff and just listen to it. I I will say we didn't really talk enough about Ike Clanton. He's such a fun character in this movie. He's just the heel. He's just
Hmm.
there to be disliked, and he plays it so well. He just how would they put it? He just kind of sticks in your craw. Like he's not in, he's not somebody that is you're ever comfortable around. He's just irritating and grating and tries to be tough, but he's a full on deep down a coward.
Yeah, he
Utter
whines and he threatens, and then as soon as he's at a disadvantage,
mm-hmm,
he gives up and begs for mercy, and then
right.
gets up and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna get you." Like, see, there's a little bit of me. Like, sometimes we do complain about the choices the characters make in movies and whether they make sense or not. And the choice to keep letting Ike go is not a good choice. But we've also talked about characterization. And killing Ike when he's asking for mercy is not something the Earp brothers would have done, right? All
You're
the
right. I
decisions they
mean,
made, even the wrong ones, are all things that make sense given their character. There's nothing
mm-hmm.
that's like out of the blue that they do that doesn't make any sense. To go just to use Captain Marvel since I already mentioned it as an example, there's all this stuff of like stop using your emotions or whatever. Like they keep talking about her emotions,
mm.
but she's never emotional in the whole movie. That makes no sense. There's
Right.
no like there's clearly something that was left out of that movie or edited out or cut out or whatever that we're missing. But this feels complete. Like everything that happens, everything that's said, every decision they make makes sense. It doesn't feel like there's anything left out of it. It feels like a complete story and the filmmaker's vision actually made it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a thing that doesn't happen as often as it should. That studios interrupting and making decisions based on what they think people are going to want, especially with the woke culture that we have right now,
Yeah.
and trying to appease certain groups versus just appeasing, especially when you're talking about franchises that have been around for a long, long time. And instead of trying to appease your core audience, no, we're trying to appease certain groups and things like that. This movie doesn't do that. And it's just 100%. I agree with you on the fact that this is what they wanted to make. They had a vision for it, good script, good actors, everybody was on board, and they did it. I will say though, whereas it would not be in the Earp brothers character to put Ike down while he's begging for his life, I think Doc might.
Doc, yeah. Doc probably would have.
I don't think Doc would have held back quite so much.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's a whole lot more I got for Tombstone. I'm gonna be honest.
No, there's
How
not.
about you? Anything else? Any final thoughts you want to add?
No, I would just end by saying, kind of recapping what we've already said, that it's a really well made movie, well shot, well acted, well written. The characters are consistent. The
Mm-hmm.
relationships are well laid out, by behavior, not just the way they talk to each other. Like I was just on TV the other day. It was one of the Sherlock Holmes movies, the Robert Downey Jr. ones.
Okay.
And there's a scene where the guy's telling him, to pick up this gun. It's like a modern looking gun, but it's like 1885 or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy's telling him like, that takes one of these. And Sherlock's like, oh, so you must retract a. And the guy, while he's saying you must retract a bolt to engage the first round, the guy does it and has the gun pointed at him. And he goes, easier done than said. And in some cases, establishing a character or relationship is easier done than said.
Mm-hmm.
Just to show the way they act around each other, the way they look at each other, can tell a better story. And I also think that they did it without. I mean, this is back in the day, so they just made a movie that people would want to see. They weren't probably aiming at a specific audience, but they also didn't aim to change it. I mean, it's based off historical characters,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate that they didn't try to modernize it, to put modern values in it. They didn't, like, a lot of them act terrible because they would have acted terrible back then. It doesn't, you don't put your 1993 sensibilities into it. Just the same way now, like you don't, it's not a great idea to take Star Wars or whatever other franchise and try to appease somebody who has nothing to do with it. You said that and it made me think of a lady who popped into my bar a couple weeks ago. She's like 75 and like 3 feet tall.
Okay.
And she was like, "Oh, you need a pool table in here." I was like, "Okay. Are you going to come play it?"
I mean, yeah, that's a relevant analogy.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, Halligans. Not going to be a super long one. Not super short. I mean, we like to talk about stuff,
Yeah.
but it's nice to get back to do it. We would like to try to make this again more of a weekly thing. We will do our very best. Next
Hmm.
movie, I did promise my daughter we will be doing Twilight, so I'm going to apologize about that right now. But I've not seen it. Ryan is well acquainted with it, so I do look forward a little bit to watching it because I like Robert Pattinson. I
Yeah.
never saw him in that, so I couldn't like have my opinion of him ruined before really getting to know him as an actor. And I've liked him in a lot of the things I've seen him in thus far. So this should be interesting. He's been in 3 of the movies we've reviewed so far:
Yeah.
Tenant, and then The
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse, which is just insane, and The Batman.
Yeah.
So this will be. God, will he be our most reviewed actor?
Off
We're
the
gonna have
top of
to.
my
I might
head, I
have to
want
go
to say,
through
yeah.
our stuff and watch and like look over it and to find out. Pull some 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with this.
It'd
See
be
how
him.
many.
It'd probably be him or Willem Dafoe,
Yep,
just
Defoe.
based on how
Oh my god.
prolific each of them is, or J.K. Simmons, because he's in
Mm,
every Spider-Man movie,
he is. He is in
plus
every
Whiplash.
Spider-Man movie. But yeah, as the movie I mentioned, only because I mentioned this before, I am really, really big. Like I don't think I was as on board with Willem Dafoe when I was much younger as I am now. He is such a fantastic actor, and I love him
Mhm.
in almost everything I think I've ever seen him in. He was in Boondock Saints, and I didn't realize that before. Like I thought I'd watched it, but I don't. I think maybe I started it but never finished it. And he's plays this FBI agent. It's really he's a hell of a character in every role that he has. He really brings something to it. So that
Yeah,
was
he
really
also
fun. But yeah, I'd like to look up and see what single actor we've
talked about
reviewed
the
the
most.
most, based on what movies we've reviewed. But that's going to be it for us here. Ryan, where can they reach us if they'd really, really, really like to?
They can email us at moviehowl@gmail.com, and they can find us on Twitter at moviehowl.
Sounds good. All of you, thank you once again for listening, Halligans. This is going to be it for us. I have been Joe,
I've been Ryan.
and we are 100% out.